Hey, welcome to another video. How's my people? Hey, I wanted to tell y'all, give you a heads up. Next week, I'm heading down to the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm going to be getting after some redfish and some trouts. I'm going to try this weekend to get a couple of videos done so I can schedule them next week and get them out. But this one right here is a real long one. It's a couple of long stories, and they're a little different than the stories I normally do, but they're really good. I think you're going to enjoy them. Hang with me. I think the video's 30 or 40 minutes long, something like that. Should be a good one. All right, here we go. Got a story here from Phil. Phil, every once in a while I get a email and the writer has a lot of opinions and, things like that. And I respect people's opinions. And again, I've said it 1,000 times, I don't make any judgments. And I've even stated a few opinions myself based on logic, but that doesn't mean that I know anything about Bigfoot. So when I read these stories that are full of opinions or they have an opinion in them, that is fine. I don't have any issue with that. But I want you to know I may agree or disagree with it from time to time, and I'm not going to even talk about that as I read the story. But some of the opinions you hear are not the narrator's opinion, and that might be the case in this email, but that's cool. Everybody's entitled to a good opinion, and I respect that. And I appreciate people sending those to me. So let's dive into Phil's email. He says, my name is Phil. I'm from Northeast Iowa. That's right, the field of dreams. I wasn't planning to write you, although I've considered writing you in the past, but I never got around to it. However, I just listened to another great video of yours when I caught you saying that you're 99.9% sure that Sasquatch is real. Well, my friend, I'm here to take you to the Century Club with the rest of your listeners. I work out west as a big game hunting guide. Hunting clients will fly in each week on small planes to one of the many remote Forest Service airstrips that Idaho has to offer. Ours happens to be in the middle of the Frank Church River of No Return wilderness area in central Idaho. We pick up the clients and their gear via horse and mule from the airstrip, and we ride 3 hours to camp, which gets us away from the extremely remote airstrip that is, in fact, open to the public. Before and after each season, 4 of us guides will ride the stock in, each leading a string of around 7 horses and mules, which are carrying stuff for our camp and our personal gear, or whatever gear the outfitter doesn't want flown in or out. The 22-hour horseback ride pulling a string of loaded mules along sheer cliffs is, well, that's why I do this. Often regarded as one of the most remote areas in the lower 48, the Frank Church Wilderness allows no man-made technology, no chainsaws, no four-wheelers, no bikes, nothing. Heck, I'm glad I get to bring my saddle and an alarm clock. Is my story the best you've ever told? No. But it's the truth, like most of the other stories that you read. I can't start by telling everyone that I grew up chasing whitetails and turkeys because I haven't grown up yet and I'm still chasing them. I'll be 34 years old this fall, and my goal each year for my birthday is to have my hunter harvest an elk or a deer. 3 years ago, during my birthday week, the hunter that I was guiding was a very high-ranking law enforcement official and a newly crowned political figure in California. I wondered if he was a good, honest policeman and would be a good, honest politician. I had no way of knowing this, and I assumed the answer was no. I walked his butt in the dirt that day, and the next day and the day after that. He actually harvested a nice young bull on my birthday, and instead of taking the long way back to camp, we took a shortcut straight down the steepest, slickest, most rock-filled mountainside that I could find. He made it, but I think I humbled him a bit. The following year, in late August of 2018, I found myself once again counting down the days to elk season. A fellow guide and I were hauling in a camp, canvas tents and hay loaded on the backs of our mules in preparation for the long hunting season. One afternoon, the two of us had some time to burn, so we walked up the mountain to a spot where we could actually get a view. The timber was so tall, dark, and thick that you had to go out of your way to get any views at all in some areas. We weren't in an area that gets any foot traffic in winter, spring, or summer, but during the fall hunting season, someone will inevitably obnoxiously walk through this part of the area. We sat down to have a late lunch in the perfect setting for a good nap. As I sat there, my gaze was down this mellow, rocky slope that we were sitting on, which was actually an old, small rock slide that a trail now cut across, and we were sitting on the trail. That rock slide was the reason that we could see clearly because it was a natural clearing in the forest. 20 yards in front of me and slightly off to the left was a group of 5 or so medium-sized pine trees. Around this small cluster of trees were rocks and grass. Behind that small cluster of trees, the dark timber starts and doesn't stop for dozens of miles in any direction. Before I was able to get too comfortable to doze off, I saw something move. It wasn't something in the corner of my eye. I'm literally looking down at that cluster of trees, and I saw this thing move. It was the top quarter of an upright black figure slowly move or slide behind one of the trees. When I say a quarter of an upright thing, I mean the entire right shoulder, the right arm, and head of something that resembled a man. It was quite a ways up the trunk, so my brain immediately started eliminating what it was. I never took my eyes off the spot. Was it a black bear climbing a tree right in front of us? We'd been sitting so long and these trees were so close, that was impossible, especially considering the fact that black bears never stop moving unless they're laying down. Was it a wolf, a lion, an elk, or a deer? Nope. My brain was eliminating everything very quickly. By now I was standing up and beginning to get quite curious, and so was my buddy next to me, who was now looking down at the spot as well. "I'm going down there," I said nonchalantly. I saw something big and dark-colored very smoothly slide behind a tree. I'm not even thinking it's another human trying to scare us because it's not. Nobody was within a few miles of us at this time. I randomly tossed a big rock down in the general direction right before I was going to walk down there. That was a big mistake. Before I could even take 2 steps, from directly behind us, I'm talking within feet, something standing above us just out of sight because of the uphill slope made a sound so loud and abnormal that we froze dead in our tracks. We heard that thing behind us attempting to communicate with us. It was angry that we were there, or it was happy to see us. I'm not sure. I really don't know. But my sense is that it meant us no harm. Those particular Sasquatch in that spot never put that dreadful feel in my body. So we froze for a few moments, wrapping our brains around the situation. As I turned around and peered up the rocky slope behind me, I didn't see anything. My friend and I looked at each other in shock. Naturally, I'm a curious person. When something like this happens, don't you think I'd immediately want to get to the bottom of what was stalking me? As the top predator that man is, don't you think I'd be closer to feeling of rage? I didn't, and I wasn't. I didn't even have the thought to just stay put, assess the danger, and figure out what was exactly happening here. In fact, the two of us just started walking away. No fear, no curiosity, no thoughts, no words, no nothing. Almost like it didn't happen. As we walked down to the horses, I was aware of footsteps in the woods escorting us. Not once did Sasquatch even come into my mind, even though I've been aware of their existence for over 20 years. We soon returned to where we staged our horses and mules, and the footsteps continued and actually surrounded us in the area. Looking back, I realized that all the times I'd been in that location with our stock, I had heard footsteps in the thick foliage in the trees, and I had assumed that that was deer or elk that were eating the hay that spilled on the ground from our mounts. Apparently, that was not always the case. For the next few days, I was unable to think clearly about the encounter. I was unable to wrap my head around the situation. I had just had an opportunity to try to communicate with these beings, and that was a dream of mine. However, I did nothing. My mind felt blank, and I believe I know why. I wasn't ready for that experience to be any more than it was. Who knows, perhaps they would have shown their face close up and scared me so bad that I never would return to the woods again. Perhaps the world isn't ready to fully accept the fact that these things are out there. Or have we been held from this information either to protect us or to keep us sheep? My thoughts support the secondary of the two. It blows my mind that so many people know about these things, yet they have done nothing. They have done nothing for their community, let alone inform their family and friends to keep them informed and safe. We think ridicule by our neighbors is worse than expanding our lives and expanding our community. This has nothing to do with politics or religion, so let's break free from that constant circle of thought because it's creating so much separation from one another. Thankfully, we have these platforms to reach some real folks, and thankfully we have some brave folks like I'm not brave, who talk about this openly, whether it's his beliefs or not. I have been roaming the forests throughout this country my entire adult life. I even taught at a survival school in Maine. I've hiked hundreds of miles on the Appalachian Trail. I've been on multi-week long, extremely remote wilderness trips in Canada and Alaska. I've hiked all over California and Arizona, and I'm a professional hunting guide in Idaho and in Montana to this day. So put yourself in my shoes for once. My life revolves around the forest and the mountains of North America. The forest is the one and only place that I personally know that is real and always factual. It's one thing that hasn't led me or any one of us down. The one thing that hasn't tried lying to me or any of us. The wilderness is where a lot of us go because we have to. It's in our soul. That elder policeman and new politician from California that comes to Idaho to spend a week with me needs it to get out of his real life for a handful of days where folks lie and cheat him like it's their job. What do I say when he or my next week's client ask if anything scares me out here? I lie to them like another coward, and I say no, because I don't want to ruin his one escape, the wilderness. I know what's out there in these woods, and it doesn't keep me from going back every day. And where I go in Montana to guide, in the Swan Mountains, we have more grizzlies and black bears than anywhere in the lower 48. And when I holster my heavy steel on my hip each morning, it's not for bears, it's for the rogue Bigfoot or whatever creature that people talk about in the Missing 411 series. And that first bullet in my revolver goes to whatever creature wants it. The second bullet is for me, because what's out there in this world will not be affected by anybody's little gun or their protective dog by their side for that matter. While many folks invest their time in watching the news and gossiping about the crappy neighbor they deal with or spending time with their wives and kids, I'm spending my time trying to figure out how we aren't informed and racking my brain wondering why people think anything is more important than the truth about Sasquatch's existence. My grandpa went to war, then straight into the factory with 6 kids to feed after selling the family farm. I know for a fact that he would want me to continue living my freedom that he fought for. It's time that more of us stand up for what's right and start to use our brains for things other than arguing politics, news, and what Luke Bryan is singing about. It's keeping us dumb and we're losing. And no, I can't mimic the noise I heard that particular day on the mountain. Something with a brain was attempting to communicate with me, and I didn't know if it was friendly or not. I heard someone telling their Sasquatch story once, and they mentioned hearing a xylophone-type sound in the woods next to them. That would be similar to the beginning of whatever started chattering at us. You can use my name, my friend, and yes, these things are as real as water is wet. Thanks, Dixie, and shout out to your happy dogs. Phil, that's a great email, and I I respect your opinions on, the importance of identifying this creature and knowing the truth about its existence, but I don't really lose any sleep over it, honestly. I'm not sure that it's the most important thing in the world as far as whether Sasquatch is real. And that's just for me. I mean, I have a life, I have a job to do, and I have a family, and I just live a regular life like everybody else. But this topic is very interesting to me, and I love reading about it, and I love reading your stories. And any opinion like this or any opinion contrary to this is welcome to be read on this channel. This is like a newspaper. I'm just trying to get the truth out. The truth may be a combination of what so many people in this topic think. I think when it all comes down to it, we're going to find out, if we ever find out anything, that a lot of the things that a lot of different groups that hate each other actually had a lot in common. I hope that's the case, but it's a great email. Man, you're living the dream out there, Phil, and I'm jealous, brother. It's awesome. I hope you have a good hunting season next year. Thank you very much for writing in, buddy. Here's an email that I got probably 6, maybe more, maybe 7 months ago. I've had it for a while and I've read it a couple of times, but it's so long that it's never actually fit in a video. But I'm going to go ahead and put it on this one with another video or with another story because it's just really good. And, long video's okay. So, and the woman doesn't tell me if she wants to be identified or for me to say her name, so I'm just not going to. But she'll know, it's her story when she hears this. Let's see here. I enjoy listening to your stories. I like your format of just simply reading one's experiences. I would like to start off by saying that my experience was very good, unlike all the bad that you normally hear about. And yes, Bigfoot did interrupt my prayer. Before I get into that, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I live in Florida full-time, and I have a small place in the north woods of Wisconsin, about 40 minutes away from the upper peninsula of Michigan with my husband. We bought our place in 2008. We can only get up there maybe 3 times a year. We have been snowmobiling for probably 15 years, and we decided that it was time to get a place of our own and share it with our family when they can get away. I didn't really know anything about Bigfoot other than what Bigfoot represented, a monster as described by most people. I have never previously been on a Bigfoot website or read anything about them, like the sounds that they make, their behaviors, or anything else. Therefore, the thought of Bigfoot would have never crossed my mind. So basically, I was clueless that I had a close encounter with a Bigfoot until after it happened later, when all the details of the events slowly came to light. Some memories took longer than others to awaken. It's funny how your brain can only take in so much information at one time when your mind is on high alert. You ask yourself, what exactly just happened? The actual encounter occurred on October 12, 2017. Leading up to this date, a couple of strange things occurred during the week of our vacation. I will only mention this one, but Bigfoot was snooping around earlier in the week. We like to make campfires. We place a couple of chairs around the fire pit, and we have a little white collapsible table that we put our drinks and food on. Well, we accidentally left our table out that night, and the next morning we found it upside down with the legs up. This table is the most craziest thing to put together. I defy anyone to get it right the first time. Again, I didn't think much of it, and I just went about my business. All during that week, I fed the deer 3 times a day. I have never feared the deer. I love animals and like to go out of my way to talk to them and interact with them. I even try to get the deer to eat from my hand. I got very, very comfortable with the deer coming around the feeder, so comfortable that I wanted to sort of hang out with them the night of the 12th. I don't know what I was thinking. It was dusk, probably around 7 to 7:30 p.m. I walked out on the patio and I headed towards where the property opens up. I knew the deer were out there, but I really wasn't paying attention. I was walking slowly and looking up at tall trees and the sky and decided to say a prayer for thankfulness for allowing me to be in such a pristine environment among the animals and the forest. To my surprise, before I finished my prayer, I was interrupted by at least 5 very deep, quick whooping sounds. It was loud, but not like a screaming. I knew in my heart of hearts that sound was a warning. That's all I knew. It was a warning. It sounded just like a man. When I turned to look behind me to see where that sound came from, something strange happened to my eyesight that I cannot explain. It was like I was trying to push my eyes to see, but I couldn't see. All I saw was black. It was as if someone had put a clear shower curtain in front of my face with the water trickling down. It was so weird. Maybe God intervened there, so I turned my head quickly from back to front to see a doe 6 feet away from me. I never looked back the entire time, only straight ahead. The whoops seemed like they were about 8 to 10 feet away. I couldn't understand why I could not see 8 feet behind me, but I could see as far as 60 feet in front of me, where there were about 7 or 8 does and bucks all spread out. Well, here's what happened. Right after I turned my head from back to front, I was looking directly at the doe's eyes. I stared intently and nothing could have broken my concentration. It appeared to me the whoops did not get her attention at all. It was only when she saw me that her head went up from the grazing along with the other deer in unison. I projected no fear whatsoever while I was staring at her. I was more concerned that I didn't know what the deer were going to do, so I just froze there in place. I didn't move an inch. I have since read where a deer and a hunter can lock eyes for 15 minutes. It was more like 5 minutes for me. If she would have stomped her foot, I would have had my answer. During this staring competition, an interesting thing happened. My peripheral vision was acutely working, but not necessarily comprehending what was happening around me. The later memories are like flash pictures. Only much later, when my mind was slowly unlocking everything, did I recall seeing the Bigfoot step out and show himself or herself from the trees further away to see if I would turn and look at it. I didn't because I was in that concentrated stare down with the doe ready to bob and weave in case it was going to rise up on me. I don't know why I didn't just back up slowly and take off running, but I didn't. I just froze. The Bigfoot appeared to be about 8 or 9 feet tall and lanky, dark brown or black. It was standing sort of sideways looking at me. I suppose a couple of minutes after that is when the Bigfoot came behind me and slowly and silently slid right next to me on my right side down on all fours. I swear I did not hear a thing. I still can't believe how quiet it was. I initially didn't know it was there because I was still staring at the doe. It slid under my line of sight, so that would make sense why I didn't see it. Very smart on its part to do this because if I did turn my head to the left or the right, there wouldn't be anything obstructing my view. Shortly after that, while still looking forward, something seemed different. I ever so slowly turned my eyes downward to the right and I noticed there was something black next to me that was about waist high to me. I estimate that would be about 3.5 feet up from the ground. You can read this part very slowly if you like. I mean, right next to me. There was no sound, no smell. Its head was at one point exactly next to me. It was not conical. It was round with waviness going all the way around. I think that is when it may have caught me peeking at it because I looked more than once. I still didn't know what I was looking at next to me. I continued staring straight ahead, and the next time that I peeked down, it had moved up 2 feet from me now. I guess it figured that I wasn't going anywhere and I was no threat to it. I don't know. Its head and back were straight ahead looking at the deer. It was 4 feet away from the doe, and I was 6 feet away. I caught it looking to the left and right ever so slightly to see all the deer. Just about the time the Bigfoot was doing this, the doe finally brought her head back down to the ground to graze again. That was about the time that I was coming out of my concentration mode and started feeling that something was wrong. Something didn't feel right. Only 3 words came to my mind at that point: time to go. Right then is when I took off running back to the front door. I didn't run in the house though, I just stood at the door as I still wasn't quite afraid. Another smart move on the Bigfoot's part is that it was to my right. Had it been to my left, I would have fallen over it when I took to running. When I reached the door about 10 seconds later, a doe and her 2 fawns walked past me down the driveway. They came from behind the shed. That is like a shortcut for the deer from the open property, and they use this shortcut all the time. It is exactly where the Bigfoot was concealing itself by the trees. It is the perfect spot for it to easily grab a deer. I recognized the doe and her fawns because I had been feeding them all week. Just in case whatever it was still around watching me, I made a point to say to the deer twice in a very quiet and friendly voice, "Hello, Mama dear, take your babies." I wanted it to know that I was friendly and that I loved animals. I was so happy it allowed them to pass behind the shed unharmed. Still, I didn't know what this thing was yet. After that, I went inside and I told my husband about the whoops. He didn't hear a thing. He's a pessimist and doesn't believe it was a Bigfoot. About a week later, when we got back from vacation, I called the Chamber of Commerce of this small town and inquired about the whoop sounds. I told the woman that the sound was like a man's voice. She said that it could have been a barn owl or a great horned owl. I checked the calls of these birds on the internet and it was not what I heard. Somebody else told me that it was a bear and another person said it was turkeys. I listened to their sounds as well. Still, it wasn't what I heard. About that time is when I ran into a Bigfoot site. Bingo, that was it. That was the sound that I heard, without a doubt. From that time on, I spent hours and hours listening to other people's stories and learning more and more about what Bigfoot is all about and putting the pieces of my encounter together. It seems as if no one can really come to a consensus on what they are, but I feel they are a type of human. Obviously, from my experience, they do show compassion for other living things. The bad stories seem to generally happen when people are camping or hunting close to their home in the forest. Once I was satisfied that the Bigfoot was there to protect me and not eat me, I wanted to find a way to show my appreciation on our next trip in October of 2018. We have a couple of cylinder blocks stacked up right beside the shed near where all this took place. What I did was put 2 different looking seashells inside each compartment where the holes are. I knew that we weren't going to be back again until May of 2019, and the snow would cover them, so I put them inside. So when I did get back, I found one of the seashells was gone, and in place of it was a small stick about the same size of the shell placed exactly in the middle where the shell was. It took the one that was twisty looking, of course. I still didn't understand yet about the stick. I was still trying to decide whether or not Bigfoot actually took it. I looked all around for the shell and I couldn't find it. I did eventually come upon a website and somebody had said that that's what they do. They leave sticks sometimes. The day before we were scheduled to fly back to Florida at dusk, I grabbed up all of our leftovers and I walked across the street and I carefully laid them on a path by our mailbox, which is about 3 feet wide. It goes into the woods right there. I had this feeling that he or she or they were there hiding. I had an overwhelming feeling from Bigfoot of recognition and anxiousness. Maybe they were possibly projecting these feelings on me. The next morning, very early, I purposely went back to the spot where I left the food and everything was gone. I'm used to seeing how picky deer can be when they eat. They snub regular food. Mice and raccoons always leave a mess. It was as if the food was simply picked up and taken away. There was a lot of food. The day that I left in May, I placed a new object in one of the cinder block holes, a beautiful green feather from a Quaker parrot that I beaded on some brown twine. The feather actually belongs to a bird here in Florida. The other seashell is still in its compartment. I will be going back next month and I will be bringing another rock and a bear claw shell. I really hope he takes one or the other and replaces it with something that I will be sure to keep now that I know what's going on. One last note of interest. Only about a month ago, I had an aha moment about the collapsible table. I remembered that when I picked the table up and put it back upright, it had several brown, long grease marks on the top and the legs. You guessed it, those were the fingerprints of the Bigfoot when I was trying to put the table back upright. I run this scenario in my head for a laugh every now and then, again picturing him fumbling around with the table. It took a lot of effort and 409 to clean it up. The grease was pretty thick. Well, there you have it, a nice encounter with a Bigfoot. Just like everybody else, you have to be careful who you tell your story to, which is basically no one. I did, however, learn a lesson from this experience from Bigfoot. Don't get so comfortable with the deer because they are wild animals. Now I keep my distance and my guard up. Thank you very much for your channel and God bless. And then she signs the email. Well, that's interesting. That's a lot of people gift these Bigfoots, and if the food or the little trinkets were gone, that would be one thing, but they always leave, or a lot of times they leave things in its place, and that's what makes the whole thing intriguing. But that's a very interesting story, and I know it meant a lot to you. So there you go, friend. I finally got to your story. All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the email. I really appreciate it. Okay, that's going to wind it up for this video. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next video. You're awesome. Thanks.